Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Audra Martin Merrick. I'm the chair of the Drupal board, the Drupal Association board, and I'm very excited to be here to introduce our next speaker. Svetlana Kuznetsova is an independent consultant and accessibility trailblazer. Sveta helps businesses make their web, media, and events more accessible to the world's largest minority of 1.85 billion disabled people. She is an author and a speaker with more than 20 years of experience in design, technology, and accessibility. Her combination of personal experience with deafness and professional expertise with accessibility gives people valuable insight into the importance of accessibility. Finally, I'll mention Svetlana is deaf and has someone voicing her typing in the chat box. Welcome, Sveta.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm a fair-skinned brunette wearing a red top. Virtual background has a photo of the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City because that's where I live. I am excited to talk about accessibility for deaf and hard of hearing people. Deafness is an invisible disability. You may not be able to tell that I'm deaf unless you see me wearing a cochlear implant on my head or communicating in sign language. You may think I'm ignoring you when you're saying, "Excuse me," repeatedly. I'm not ignoring you on purpose, of course. I want to mention that the word hearing impaired is no longer preferred by many deaf and hard of hearing people and by many local, national, and international organizations representing those people. It was coined by the medical community looking on deafness from a pathological perspective. So when referring to us as a group, please use deaf and hard of hearing. If you are not sure how to reference an individual task, ask. For simplicity's sake, I will use the word deaf people for the remainder of this talk to describe people with all degrees of hearing loss. Deaf people represent a pretty large number. In the United States alone, we make up over 48 million people worldwide. We comprise over 466 million people. There are so many misconceptions about deafness. Let me share a few examples. When people think about deafness, the image often comes up as a senior citizen using a hearing aid. But look at me. I'm deaf and I'm not that old. I grew up wearing hearing aids and now I have a cochlear implant. Actually, more and more young people are going to doctors' offices because they've lost some hearing, mostly from exposure to loud noises. They're listening to music with earbuds on high volume or going to loud concerts. Continuous exposure to loud noises is the #1 case of hearing loss. Age is #2, and #3 is disease or accident. That's what happened to me. I was born with good hearing to parents who can hear. No one in my family had a history of deafness or any disability. When I was 2 years old, I got sick with meningitis. It was pretty bad enough to cause me to become profoundly deaf. I'm also one of 90 to 95% of deaf people who come from hearing families. Many deaf people have hearing kids as well. So genetic deafness is very rare. Many people think all deaf know sign language. The vast majority of them don't know sign language. They use primarily spoken languages. Most of them are hard of hearing, individuals with progressive hearing loss, late deafened adults, and deaf people who have had intensive speech therapy at a very young age, like me. I didn't use sign language when growing up. I learned American Sign Language, my fifth language, as an adult by regularly mingling with people who are native to or fluent signers. If I didn't have that opportunity, I would not have become a fluent ASL signer by now. Like with any language, you need full immersion. Many deaf people don't have this opportunity. Also, sign languages are not the same in every country. American Sign Language is completely different from British Sign Language, for example. Their difference is more pronounced than the difference between American and British English. If deaf people can communicate well orally, it doesn't mean that they can understand everything and everyone, even with hearing aids and implants. Those devices don't cure deafness. Hearing doesn't equal understanding. For example, you may see Chinese characters clearly, but you can't understand what they mean. Same with hearing devices. Some people, like myself, can recognize only environmental sounds when others can understand speech, but not 100%. Many people assume that we can lip read. Lip reading is not magic. You can only see about 30% of the words on someone's mouth, and there are many other factors that influence that as well. It's like playing Wheel of Fortune or Hangman with all this guesswork. It's very taxing on our deaf brains. That's why many of us need additional visual access to oral information, such as written text, sign language, or cued speech. If you want to communicate with a deaf person, it's best to ask by writing down, how do you prefer me to communicate with you? Please do not ask us how much we can hear or if we can speak or lip read you. You are making us accommodate you when it should be the other way around. If you don't have patience, deaf people may bluff and communication would fall apart. Depending on our needs, you may be asked to speak slower or to move to a quieter place, or to write or type back and forth. If you know some sign language and the person is a native or fluent signer, don't be afraid to use it. It shows that you are making an effort. When a deaf person participates in a group conversation, it's really important to include them. Please don't say words like, never mind, it wasn't important, or I'll tell you later. Deafness is not a black and white issue. It's not either you can hear or not. Deafness really ranges along a continuum from mild to moderate to profound hearing loss. People have a variety of communication needs and abilities. I cover that in detail in my workshops on deaf awareness. Now I want to talk about websites. When you think about accessibility on websites for deaf people, you may think video captioning. That is one of the issues, but I also want to mention another issue that many people don't think about. Online form, as you see here. You are thinking, what's wrong with that? There's a phone number field and it's requiring me to fill it out. Obviously, we can't hear on the phone. Some people can't speak on the phone, but they may have a hard time, can speak on the phone, but may have a hard time hearing you. There are different types of relay services here in the USA that allow us to communicate with people on the phone through a third-party operator. It is great, but there are some drawbacks. Many of us prefer to communicate directly through email, text, instant messaging, online chats, and video calls because it's 2021. Pretty much everybody is texting or communicating via video. The internet and smartphones equalized communication between deaf and hearing people. Many of us can communicate with each other via text or video. Smartphones are based on universal design. They benefit everyone. It's not only us deaf people who benefit from texting. More hearing people are preferring to use text instead of phone calls, especially millennials and introverts. One piece of research stated that if the phone number was required, the less people would be willing to fill out online forms. So if you leave the phone field as optional, the number of people signing up would increase your business, and your business would improve the conversion rate. So I advise you to offer more options for your customers to contact you, such as via email, texting, instant messaging, online chats, and video calls. Please don't limit yourself and your customers to contact you via phone only. Also, consider hiring deaf people for call center positions so that your deaf customers who use sign language can communicate with them directly via video. Now, I want to talk about how to approach different events. When I'm talking about events, that can be any type of opportunity to engage with deaf people. It could be a one-on-one conversation, a group conversation, a classroom, a business meeting setting, a small event, or a large-scale event. It could happen in person or virtually. Most events have been virtual lately since the pandemic started. While I enjoy attending events that are accessible to me, there are many others that are not, including diversity and inclusion events. Often non-disabled people deny our requests for our preferred access services or decide on access services that do not fit our needs or are of lower quality. That's frustrating. People with disabilities make up the largest minority group, but unfortunately, they're the most often overlooked. We are often excluded from diversity and inclusion issues. It's not enough for us to just be accepted. We need our accommodations to be met in order to be on an equal footing with others. I often receive comments from organizers saying, "Hey, you're the first deaf person who has ever asked for communication access. I've never had this before." I want to mention that for many people, deafness carries a tremendous stigma. Many people don't want to disclose their hearing loss. They are often in a state of denial about it, especially those who become deaf as adults. So, asking for communication needs will make a person with hearing loss feel that they are weak or stupid. They will not ask for accessibility and will just try to fit in as much as possible. Trust me, many of you may have already met a deaf or hard of hearing person, but haven't realized it because deafness is an invisible disability. There are also many people, regardless of the cause of their deafness or communication preferences, who are not aware of their rights or are afraid of speaking up or are just tired of fighting for access. There are many various types of access services, including but not limited to live captioning, sign language interpreting services, oral interpreting services, cued speech transliteration. Assistive listening devices are typically used by people who benefit from hearing aids and cochlear implants. Preferential seating may be requested. For example, I personally prefer captions when listening to a speaker and ASL interpreting for social interactions in person. My access needs depend on the situation. Solutions vary from event to event and from person to person. I help organizations with optimal accessibility strategies for their events as well as for their web and media. I also have over 20 years of experience working with sign language interpreters, captioners, and various access service providers nationwide and worldwide. They are not created equal. Some are good, others are not. When working with interpreters and captioners, it is important that they not only provide high-quality services, but also show sensitivity and respect to deaf people by following the Code of Professional Conduct or Code of Ethics. As per the Code of Ethics, access providers are refrained from offering advice, interjecting personal opinions, getting undue attention, and stepping out of their roles as access providers, among many other things. That brings about accountability, responsibility, and trust to deaf people. Unfortunately, not all access providers follow the Code of Ethics. It's been a very sensitive topic in the deaf community. Accessibility is not about focusing on access providers or giving them undue attention, but ensuring that the needs of deaf people are met. It's important that deaf people feel comfortable attending events or working with providers. Sadly, they don't always have a voice in access services that are often determined by hearing people without consultation with deaf people. The hard work of good interpreters and captioners is always appreciated. However, when event organizers and attendees praise access providers or treat captions and sign language as a cool thing instead of as an important access service for deaf people, it makes our needs and experiences less important. It's a large and complicated topic that is out of the scope of this presentation, but it's a very important issue not to be taken lightly. It's also something that event organizers may want to consider when adding to their event code of conduct. If you want to better understand about the Code of Ethics, feel free to ask me afterwards. There will be a link to an article about this at the end of my presentation. Now I want to talk a little bit about media accessibility. Many of you know that it's captions and transcripts. However, it's more than just adding text. Let me share some examples. Podcasts can be made accessible via transcripts. They have to be done in verbatim and to include every word that the person said, plus speaker identifications and sound descriptions. They also need to be properly formatted for improved readability. Colorful language cannot be censored in text if you hear it loud and clear in audio. We are not little kids, and there are deaf people who swear like sailors. The video needs to have both captions and a transcript. You cannot choose one or the other. If you're posting the video with the transcript, but you don't include captions, it's very difficult for us to manage our eye gaze up and down from the video image to the transcript. It's not a good experience. If you're providing just captions for the video, that means that deaf people who are blind can't see captions. A video transcript is different from a podcast transcript and includes descriptions of important visual elements in the video. Many people can benefit from video transcripts. If you don't want to go through the whole video, you can skim through the transcript. Don't just turn on auto captions. They are not the best accessibility practice. While speech technologies or automated speech recognition, ASR, may be okay and even useful in social settings, they are not always suitable for professional content. Many organizations of deaf and hard of hearing people state that it's still premature to replace human captioners with ASR, and more research and development is needed with participation of deaf and hard of hearing people. Low quality captions are not better than no captions. Many deaf people call them craptions. Bad captions are not better than nothing because they cause cognitive dissonance for us deaf people in the same way bad audio makes you feel frustrated. My TEDx talk explains this more. The link to the video will be provided at the end of my presentation. It has English captions and subtitles in 6 other languages. If you're giving a presentation and your slides are going to include videos, make sure those videos also include captions that are prepared in advance. Even though you might have a live captioner or an interpreter provided during your presentation, you still need to have captions for videos in your slides. Live captions and video captions are not the same thing. They follow different sets of quality guidelines. Live captions are meant to be used in real time for events, webinars, news broadcasts. Offline video captions are used for movies, video recordings, and post-production media in general. Basically, good quality live captions are expected to have a minimum of 98% accuracy. If you see some mistakes here and there, it's expected. Live captions can be delayed for a few seconds and usually roll up, like you see on the slide. Good quality video captions, on the other hand, are expected to be 100% accurate and cannot have errors. They need to be synchronized with speech. They pop on and are chunked in 1 or 2 short lines with logical, grammatical breaks, like you see on the slide. I know it's tempting to record live captions so that you don't need to edit them or to pay for post-production captions. However, it's not the best practice, especially for professional content. Live captions from an event needs to be cleaned up and properly edited for video recordings by someone who specializes in post-production captions. If you share videos and podcasts online, make sure to add captions and transcripts on all platforms first before sharing. Please don't leave out deaf people or make them wait for access or tell them to use auto captions. It happens quite often, even with events, videos, and podcasts about accessibility and non-disabled accessibility advocates. Honestly, it saddens me that of all people, they would leave us out, intentionally or not. There's a saying in the disability community, nothing about us without us. There are 2 ways to make post-production captions and transcripts: to do it yourself or for personal content, or to outsource professional services for professional content. Crowdsourcing is not recommended for professional content. Captioning is an art. It can be done well only by experienced professionals. They create captions and transcripts that are easy to read and understand. Proper formatting is another important thing to consider. Low prices do not guarantee high quality. Post-production captioners are not created equal. Not all of them follow quality standards. When looking for vendors, ask them for samples of their work. Testimonials are not always reliable because they are often written by clients who may not know the quality standards. That's why I help organizations ensure good quality and proper formatting of captions and transcripts for their media and events. I advise them in detail on best practices. Captioning access is a very large topic in itself, and I can talk about it forever. Lastly, I would like to mention one major challenge that deaf people experienced during the pandemic. Masks. Yes, masks. As someone who relies on lips, I feel like everyone in a mask has no mouth, like you see on the slide. It's very frustrating for many of us deaf people. For safety reasons, we wouldn't want people to pull down masks for us, but we also cannot lip read them. We don't have X-ray vision. We would love to see a smile. Fortunately, there are many clear masks out there that you can use to communicate with deaf people. Some are professional, some are handmade. I cannot advise which one is best or the safest, but there are two things to consider: anti-fog and anti-glare. A mask that fogs up is as useless as a regular mask. I will share a link to an article about clear masks later on. Also, please keep in mind that clear masks still do not eliminate the need for interpreters or text access. Lip reading does not provide full access. Text access means writing down or typing on your device or using a speech technology. Yes, I advised earlier against auto captions, but it's a personal interaction, so speech technologies are okay for those situations. Now I'm ending my presentation with my motto: let's think outside the ears. You're familiar with the common expression, think outside the box. We live in a very audio-centered world. Many people don't realize that communication and information sharing doesn't only have to come through one way, hearing and speech. There are many different ways to communicate and access information. I encourage all of you to think outside the ears. If you are interested to learn more about deafness and optimal accessibility solutions, here is my info about Svetlana, about.me/Svetlana Kuznetsova. It's my first and last name. TEDx talk. You can also find my TEDx talk on bit.ly/TEDx captions. An article about clear masks on audio-accessibility.com/clear-masks. And an article about info on codes of ethics on bit.ly/info on codes of ethics. Feel free to contact me via email or private messaging if you have any questions. Thank you all for joining me.